Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Gina Wen. I'm a SMID-cap biotech analyst. It's my great pleasure to introduce our next speaker, Howard Liang, Chief Financial and Strategy Officer of BeiGene.
Thanks so much, Gina. It's great to be presenting, give you an update of BeiGene. Before I start, I need to remind you that I'll be making forward-looking statements and our business characteristics. So I'll start by giving an overview of BeiGene by telling you our overall strategy in building a leading global biotech company from China. There are four parts of our near-term and intermediate-term strategy. First is to focus on our two near-term product opportunities with the BTK inhibitor as a global, potentially best-in-class a drug that we develop globally, as well as a PD-1 antibody that is developed to address the large opportunities in China, in Asia, and beyond. Second, we've been very focused on developing our strategic capabilities internally, including global clinical development organization that's very unique among the China-based companies, as well as building a leading commercial infrastructure in China. Third part of our strategy is to leverage the regulatory reforms, which as a result make China a key center, we think, a key center of global development. So we use this opportunity to expand our portfolio by in-licensing additional products for China and Asia. In the last part of our strategy, we take advantage of the reimbursement reforms in China, which allows which provides access to a large pool of patients at an affordable price. We think that this is an opportunity to also leverage this commercial base for global markets and to grow the company through additional patients, through access to a large number of patient pool beyond China globally. So in terms of the management team, the company was started by John Oyler, a serial American entrepreneur, and Professor Wang Xiaodong, who is a Chinese biologist who trained in the U.S. but had a very successful career in the U.S. Was a member of U.S. National Academy of Sciences, returned to China. Really is one of the top scientists in China. A household name in China. We've built, from this picture you can see that we've built a team that have attracted talents globally. A few months ago, Dr. Xiaobing Wu joined us from Pfizer. He led Pfizer China for many years. It was really the most successful pharmaceutical executive in China with the longest track record. So we have a very strong commercial team now, which I'll touch on later. We also have a clinical team that is globally integrated with actually have a large presence in the United States with about 400 people in the U.S. Most of the team is involved in clinical development. This is an overview of our pipeline. We have 12 drugs in the clinic, including 3 drugs on the market. So there are 3 marketed products in China, 3 late-stage assets, a BTK inhibitor, and a PD-1 antibody, which I'll spend more time on, a PARP inhibitor that is in a global phase 3 and a phase 3 in China, as well as another pivotal phase 2 in China. And we have additional 6 earlier stage assets. So the pipeline consists of roughly half of the pipeline we developed internally, including all 3 late-stage assets, and we have 6 additional. The other half we access through business development, including the 3 marketed products. So in terms of our 2 lead products, zanubrutinib and tislelizumab, as you know, these are addressing potentially large market opportunities as BTK inhibitors and PD-1 antibodies. Zanubrutinib, and for both of the agents, we've reported very strong data in 2018. For example, for zanubrutinib for mantle cell lymphoma, we report a very high CR rate of 59%, and for tislelizumab in Hodgkin's lymphoma, we reported a CR rate of 61%, which is roughly twice of the other agents in Hodgkin's lymphoma. For zanubrutinib, we have received breakthrough designation from the US FDA, so it's a significant milestone. Which this is the first compound developed in China that received FDA breakthrough designation. So this is the overview of the clinical development program for zanubrutinib. There are 8 phase 3 or potential registration studies for the agent. So we have completed registration trials in China for mantle cell lymphoma, CLL, and we have filed these with the NMPA in China. We have, for the 3rd indication, Waldenström, we expect to file this year. Globally, outside China, we have 3 ongoing phase 3 studies. The first study is a head-to-head study comparing zanubrutinib to ibrutinib in Waldenström with the goal of showing superiority. So that data will read out later this year, in the second half of this year. We have 2 CLL studies, one in the first-line setting, comparing zanubrutinib to bendamustine Rituxan. This study has an arm with 17p deletion patients, so we recently completed enrollment of a significant expanded enlarged arm of this patient of 110 patients. We recently reported that we've completed enrollment. We expect to potentially have data as early as late this year. The second CLL study is another head-to-head study in relapsed refractory CLL comparing zanubrutinib to ibrutinib, which with the primary endpoint of overall response rate. And the last pivotal study is in follicular lymphoma, combining zanubrutinib with Gazyva. So this is a setting where BTK inhibitors have not been approved for. In regards to tislelizumab, there are 11 phase 3 or potentially registration-enabling studies ongoing. We've filed in China. We've filed for Hodgkin's lymphoma, where we expect to have approval this year. In addition, we are running 4 phase 3 studies in non-small cell lung cancer, a phase 3 and a potentially registration-enabling phase 2 for liver cancer, 2 phase 3 studies in esophageal cancer, and a phase 3 study in first-line gastric cancer. In addition, we also have a China study that we've completed enrollment for bladder cancer, which we expect to have data in the first half of this year. So switching gears to some of our capabilities that we built, we have a clinical group that it's a global base with over 800 people, roughly half in China. Together as a company, we've running 21 phase 3 or pivotal or registration-enabling studies, including 6 studies that we're including that is dual purpose for the registrations both in China as well as globally. We're running in total 50 studies ongoing that have enrolled over 4,000 patients. So on the manufacturing side, we have a manufacturing facility in Suzhou that is functioning and running. That is a it's a commercial scale small molecule manufacturing facility, but also building a biologic facility in Guangzhou in conjunction with the Guangzhou Development District. We have a experienced team from top organizations running manufacturing and technical operations. We're also working with Boehringer Ingelheim as our initial commercial supplier for the PD-1 antibody. On the commercial side, the commercial organization initially came as a result of a transaction with Celgene, where we took over Celgene's commercial organization in China. Initially, we had a team of about 130 people, so we've expanded that quite significantly to over 600. So this is a team that actually has good track record in growing the products. The 3 products initially had revenues about run rate about 15 million a quarter. Now that's about a year later. We've had that about 2.5 times now of that in the fourth quarter of 2018. So with each of the products showing growth in the last few quarters. So as part of our strategy, we like to leverage the capabilities we build in China, which we think is important because it allows us to sort of land grab in a wide, we think is still relatively open space, but it allows us to build capabilities on the clinical side as on the commercial side. So we've in leveraging that in working with other U.S. biotech companies or other biotech companies by accessing their portfolio. So we've done 2 asset deals by in-licensing Mirati's sitravatinib as well as Zymeworks HER2 antibody-based compounds. So both of these we think are quite interesting compounds. We've, for example, with Mirati, with sitravatinib, we recently expanded the trial to include 5 different tumor types in combination with tislelizumab. It's a last part of our strategy. We're leveraging China to pursue a new model for global growth. So instead of relying on high price in the U.S., we are providing high quality drugs to a large number of patients initially in China, but also globally. We think this is an opportunity afforded by the large patient base in China. That we have a global presence that for our products that we hope to get global approval from the FDA as well as EMA. So this fits really well with our global development strategy. So we think that this provides us with a new opportunity to grow the company and as well as the industry. So in terms of financials, we have at the end of last year we have about 1.8 billion in cash and short-term securities. We have been continuing to make R&D investments, but we have a good, strong cash balance. So I'd like to conclude my prepared remarks before going to Q&A with Gina by outlining some of our key milestones. So that includes potential approvals for zanubrutinib in China as well as tislelizumab in China. The U.S. filing for zanubrutinib in 2019 or early 2020, and phase 3 data for zanubrutinib in Waldenström's, which is a head-to-head study, which I think will be a significant milestone for the company, and pivotal data for tislelizumab in bladder cancer, and data from the potential registration study, phase 2 study in HCC for tislelizumab, and lastly for the PARP inhibitor pemiparib phase 2 data, pivotal phase 2 data late this year or early next year. So with that, I'd like to thank everyone and take Gina's questions.
Thank you very much, Howard. I just wanted to mention, Howard was my senior analyst and then my mentor for several years back, at the Leerink time. So I won't ask him very hard questions. So maybe, first regarding the PD-1 inhibitors. So what might be the impact from, Bristol Myers acquisition of Celgene regarding, the clinical development and operational cost?
Sure. So first of all, Gina, congrats on all your success. Great to have to be here. So for the Bristol Celgene transaction assumes it closes. The highly likely outcome would be that we'll get the tislelizumab, the PD-1 worldwide rights back with a termination fee from Celgene/Bristol to us. That is according per agreement with Celgene. It's a change control provision. So that's not the only scenario how they can deal with a competing product upon the business combination, but highly likely. But the other scenarios are not very likely. It involves, for example, divesting Opdivo, which obviously is not very likely. So operationally, we are both operationally and financially. I think we're in a good shape. I mentioned that there are 11 phase 3 or potentially registration enabling studies ongoing. We're actually operationalizing 10 of them. So we do have a team that I mentioned, 800 people already that I think fully capable of continuing to execute on the program should that occur, such that we get full rights back. We are financially, I think there will be some impact, but overall there's most of the impact will be about picking up the cost of the additional trial. And we are there's reimbursement, ongoing reimbursement already, but it's overall it's not a big impact.
What is the termination fee?
Yeah, so we haven't disclosed that, but it's a significant amount. I mean, obviously, it's
Are we talking about 3-digit million range?
It's less than that, yeah.
Less
than 100 million, yeah.
Okay, less than, okay. Okay, so, okay. And then, in China, I think that's also a very important market for you. Can you speak to the pricing and reimbursement dynamic for PD-1 antibody in China? And then I think that there is some drug that approved at a relatively low price, like $25,000 a year. So any thoughts you have on this?
Yeah. So the pricing, I think so far, I would say overall it's in line with our expectations. We do have multinational drugs, Keytruda and Opdivo, priced at substantially lower than the U.S. price, or that is to be expected. So on the order of, so Merck drug, for example, is priced roughly half the U.S. price. You mentioned there have been two approvals from local companies. One of them price it at, this is before the patient assistance program, which provides a discount. The patient before that is about $27,000 per patient per year. A more recent pricing is around $40,000. So I think we do see the local companies price it lower compared to multinational company, which is, I think, is expected. That we have not priced, we have not get approved. So obviously we'll talk about pricing when we get drug approved. But I think our overall intention is to provide access of our drugs to a large number of patients. We are so that's our overall strategy. So I think we'll continue to I think that's our overall. The key is that there's a large patient pool. So even at these prices, it's still a very significant market opportunity. There are over 3 million new cancer patients that are in tumor types that are potentially treatable or could potentially benefit from PD-1 antibodies. So any of the price range that we talk about, it could all translate into large opportunities.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and maybe just one or two questions regarding the BTK inhibitor, zanubrutinib. So for the phase 3 data, Zanu versus ibrutinib, second half this year in Waldenström, can you remind us the powering assumption and your early supporting data?
Yeah. So we have a head-to-head study comparing zanubrutinib versus ibrutinib. So they actually has two separate arms. One, if the patients have MYD88 wild type, this is a population that historically has not responded to BTK inhibitor, responded to ibrutinib. So they get into our arm with zanubrutinib only. The rest of the patients with MYD88 mutants get either zanubrutinib or ibrutinib. So the comparison, the primary endpoint will be CR or VGPR rate for the randomized phase. The powering assumption, so for the initial design, is for a 20%, roughly 15 to 20% improvement over ibrutinib in VGPR CR rate.
Mm-hmm. Okay. The last question is regarding the commercial products, Revlimid, Abraxane, and Vidaza in China. Just wondering, what was the reason for the seasonality for 4Q, where we saw a little bit slowdown?
Sure. So I think overall we see our Q4 revenue to be roughly flat versus Q3 so there's been very strong historical pattern of slowdown in Q4 versus Q3 for Abraxane. In the 3 years prior to 2018, the Q4 on average is down about 25% versus Q3. Revlimid was down about 19% between 2015 and 2017. So we were down by 14% for Abraxane, actually up by 15% for 2018. The explanation, it's largely has to do with hospital pharmacies controlling costs at the end of the year due to some limitations on the overall reimbursement budget, as well as their need to maintain the ratio of drug expenses versus overall expenses. So there's also as you know, there's a National Day holiday at the beginning of the fourth quarter that also has an impact.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much, Howard. We will have a breakout session across the hall.